I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Welcome to another Mail Call Mondays, and as you may have noticed, we did not have a Mail Call Mondays last Monday. That's because I was in Baker City, Oregon, shooting the Oregon Sniper Challenge. Now, we're not going to go into this episode a lot about courses of fire or what the Oregon Sniper Challenge is, because we are putting together a full after-action report that will cover all of that. We just got the footage from the match videographer and photographer last night, so it's going to take us a little while to edit that together and get it going. We did do a really quick wrap-up video kind of explaining what the competition is, and that's posted on our site and on our YouTube channel, so make sure you check that out. It's only about a 2-minute video, and we shot that right at the completion of Sunday's Courses of Fire. Now, what I wanted to do this week is I wanted to break down some of the gear that I used to be successful in the Oregon Sniper Challenge. There are years past where the gear really hasn't worked well. There are years past when my training has been really not what it should have been, and I didn't place where I was really happy with in the overall standings. This year, initially, when we went through the award ceremony, I was ranked 6th. They had a little bit of scoring issue that we'll talk about later in our after action report that was resolved, that actually ended up with me in 4th place overall out of 38 shooters. So this year I was fairly successful. There were still some stages that I didn't feel I did really well on, and again, we'll discuss that in the after action report. However, my gear worked pretty much flawlessly, so I really wanted to talk about the equipment on this Mail Call Mondays. Now, first of all, the Oregon Sniper Challenge is supposed to be a test of professional snipers. To that end, they instituted a rule where it was .308 limited only. You couldn't shoot any other caliber. It had to be a .308, and it had to be factory ammunition. You couldn't shoot hot hand loads. You couldn't run 155 grain bullets at 3,100, 3,200 foot per second. There was a speed limit on the ammunition, so you had to stay below the speed limit if you had a custom factory loading your stuff, but you did have to use ammunition that you actually purchased from a manufacturer, a licensed manufacturer. You couldn't make it here in your own reloading bench. There are pros and cons to that. The plus side of it is it helps to kind of even the field, because there are a lot of guys that were shooting this that are shooting it with their department rigs and with their department supplied ammunition. They do not have the advantages of running hand loads, and hand loads, the wind was kicking out there, so running a hot hand load may have given you a little bit of extra advantage. The drawback, of course, is that a rifle that I train with to shoot matches, I couldn't shoot there. I couldn't shoot the 260 or the 243. I had to set up a .308 specifically for this. Not too big of a deal, but it's something to keep in mind if you're not using your duty rig. But the intent is that you would use a rifle that you could carry on duty. Now, the rifle that I took, and we spoke about this before, is the Accuracy International AT. Accuracy International was nice enough to send this rifle out to me so that I could use it in the Oregon Sniper Challenge. We spoke to them at SHOT Show about it. We really wanted to do an overall review of the AT because it is one of the most affordable full accuracy international rifles out there right now, and it really does not give up a whole lot to the AX or any of the more expensive tiers. You're really running about the same receiver, same bolt, so it's really an awesome option for guys that want to get into an Accuracy International rifle but can't go full on AX multi-caliber or something of that nature. So they were nice enough to send it out. I figured what better way to really get an idea of how well the rifle functions in adverse environments than shoot at a competition out in the desert. And I'm proud to report that the AT functioned extremely well. The only thing that I noticed with the rifle while I was shooting the match was the bolt started to get a little bit sticky, and not sticky in the traditional sense where it's difficult to lift or lower the bolt handle. It got a little bit sticky in that the sliding action forward and back was not as smooth as it normally was. And all that was the bolt had dried out. We didn't have any lube on it anymore, and this is a relatively new rifle, so the action and bolt is not worn in like it is on my old AE Mark II. The AE Mark II, the bolt slides like glass in that thing. It is just super smooth, super slick, but it has thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds through it. And this rifle, I don't know how many rounds it had in it when it came to us. Not a whole lot, judging by the lack of wear on the bolt and the bolt lugs. But we put about 200 through it before we went out and shot the OSC with it. Now, the rifle functioned great. It has a 2-stage trigger in it. We dialed the trigger down just a little bit. The first stage is fully adjustable, easily adjustable for weight. We dropped that down a little bit so that we just had a slightly lighter trigger pull on the take-up, and it's still where I would want it for a duty rifle. It's about a 2-pound take-up and about a 1.5 pound break on the second stage. So really, really great place to be. Trigger functioned flawlessly. We saw a couple other guns go down out there. One gun went down for trigger issues. It was a Remington. We had another Remington that had some issues on the first day with some extraction, and that was just on the squad that I was on. Desert environments, when you start getting that really light powdery sand, and there's still dust and sand dug into this rifle, it really gets into everything and starts to impact it and starts to build up and can cause you issues. So that's something you really have to be aware of. You want to make sure you carry oil with you. I actually got caught on the first day. I wanted to lube the bolt up before we did a moving target stage, which requires fast bolt manipulation. And I realized that I had left my oil back in the car and had to borrow some off of somebody else to get the gun running absolutely top notch. It still would have run fine, even perfectly dry, but the bolt would not have been as fast. It wouldn't have been as easy for me to manipulate it on that moving target stage, so I would have been a little bit slower and probably lost a shot or two. So again, overall, the rifle functioned extremely, extremely well. Now, the barrel on here is not the factory Accuracy International barrel. The barrel that we have on here is from Proof Research, and it is one of their carbon fiber wrapped barrels. And this barrel got an extremely large amount of attention out there because you don't see a ton of them until you start to get into really upper levels of competition and you get into upper level duty rigs. This barrel has been extremely, extremely consistent. It's one of the most consistent barrels I think that I have in my stable. And by consistent, what that means is we took this thing, we did cold bore tracking before we left on the ammo that we're going to use at the match, the Copper Creek 175 grain 308 loads. We did cold bore tracking on it, and then I folded up the stock, threw it in the Triad Tactical Precision Rifle carry case, tossed it in the trunk of the car, and drove 1,980 miles cross country. When we got it out at the range on Friday in Baker City and fired my confirmation, my first shot, my cold bore shot, fired in Oregon, was absolutely dead on. It almost center punched the orange middle of the target. It was well within the mechanical accuracy of the rifle, and it was within what I was able to do, just pulling the rifle out of the trunk and dropping down behind it on the range without any warm up, without any dry fire. So I was extremely impressed to see that. And of course, that's not 100% the barrel. A lot of that is the action as well. This is a switch barrel rifle, so there's a screw down here. I can loosen up the screw and unscrew the barrel and put a different barrel on it by hand without barrel blocks or vices or any of that. But it shows that after the barrel is locked in and tightened down, perfectly consistent. I was extremely happy to see that. I didn't have any problems with any kind of drift, even when we started heating the barrel up on extended firing strings. All of the accuracy issues that I encountered during the Oregon Sniper Challenge were issues solely related to the shooter and not the rig at all. So very happy to see how well the proof barrel performed. I think it's a little bit on the fast side for a 20-inch 308 barrel. We're getting a little higher velocities out of it than we see with an equivalent load in an equivalent 20-inch, for instance, Remington 700. So it is a very nice barrel. And we didn't weigh it before we screwed it onto the rifle, so that is kind of a drawback on my part. When we do the full review of the proof barrel, I will pull it off and I'll weigh it on its own, just to give you guys an idea when you compare it to other 20-inch 308 barrels where we're at. But put on this rifle, it has a really nice balance point, and at no point did the rifle feel front heavy or feel off balance, even with the Thunder Beast suppressor screwed on here. So the barrel performed very well. Incredibly happy with it. And again, I want to thank Proof Research for sending this barrel out to us. And the really neat thing about this setup with the proof barrel on it is you don't have to send your rifle in when you're dealing with an Accuracy International. We spoke with Proof at SHOT Show, and they were really jumping on the idea of providing a barrel for us for the Oregon Sniper Challenge. So a couple months out, one of their engineers called me just to verify the specs, wanted to know what suppressor I was putting on it, wanted to know what ammunition I was shooting in the rifle, and they spec'd it out perfectly. Got the barrel out to me, and it screwed right on and head spaced right away. It was very easy to get the rifle put together and ready to go. Well, enough about the barrel. Let's talk about the suppressor real quick. Now, this was one of those things that I was kind of on the fence about, and I really considered the pros and cons before I decided to take the rifle out with the suppressor on it. I knew, like there are in any competitions, there were going to be a lot of braked rifles on the line. There were going to be a couple plain muzzle rifles on the line, and there was a good chance that I was going to have to move in and out or around a vehicle, so extended length was kind of a drawback. In the end, I decided to take the rifle with the suppressor on it just because I actually won the certificate for the suppressor several years back in the Oregon Sniper Challenge. So I kind of wanted to bring it back and run it and give Thunder Beast a little bit more exposure, and also kind of do it as a thanks for them supporting the competition. But also because really it helps reduce the blast and reduce the shooter fatigue in just about every way imaginable. Now, the advantages of the suppressors are really well known. They reduce sound, reduce muzzle blast, reduce dust kick-up, reduce the flash signature, pretty much all beneficial things. Now, the drawbacks, there are two big ones. One, it adds extra length to the overall length of the rifle, which is a bad thing when you're working in vehicles or you're working around barricades. And two, it causes mirage. When you start to heat up the suppressor, and it heats up very fast, when you start to heat up the suppressor, then you'll get those heat waves, that disturbance in the air right in front of your rifle scope. And that little bit of disturbance right in front of your rifle scope can be a lot of disturbance downrange, and it can make it really difficult to see precision targets. For that reason, I was really considering not taking it. The length thing I can deal with. I'm used to working with longer rifles around barricades. In precision rifle competition, I shoot a 24 or 26 inch barrel, so that wasn't that big a deal. I just really did not want to deal with the mirage. I've watched a couple of shooters get in trouble in competitions at with Mirage to the point where they could barely complete the stage, and they really couldn't get a refined sight picture with it ripping. I knew we were going to be in the desert again. I knew there was a good chance conditions were going to be hot, and a good chance I was going to be encountering that. So we went ahead and put an Armageddon Gear suppressor cover on here. Now, Armageddon Gear did supply this to us. It is made exactly for the Thunder Beast suppressor. It even has a little Thunder Beast tag on it. It is perfectly fitted to the suppressor, works great. Once we get it on here, it's not going anywhere. It actually only goes one way. You have to slide it onto the barrel before you screw the suppressor on. And this is a great big advantage. It kind of sounds like it's a pain in the butt, but really, if you're going to take the hot suppressor off, you want the cover on there. If you are going to shoot it with the suppressor on, you're going to drag it around, whatever, you want to minimize the chance of this sliding forward. Having it go only one way gives you the advantage of when the suppressor gets hot and you're done with the stage of fire, you can just pull it back and let the suppressor cool. When it's time to go up to the stage again, you can just slide it forward back over the suppressor, and you have the mirage reduction that the suppressor cover offers. The other nice advantage of the suppressor cover is it minimizes the chance of you severely burning yourself when you pick this rifle up. There are a lot of close quarters, a lot of people moving around at precision rifle matches. Coming in contact with the hot suppressor is definitely a hazard that you have to be aware of. And the suppressor covers kind of help minimize that a little bit. So if you're going to be in a crowded situation, you can keep the suppressor cover over it. If you have the chance to do so, you can pull it back and let it cool off. I really consider suppressor covers like this to be mandatory if you're going to shoot a suppressor in competition. They are highly recommended if you're going to use a suppressor in any kind of professional work on a precision rifle. Now, I want to make sure that I cover that really well when I say on a precision rifle. Suppressor covers are not something that you really want to run on a high volume semi-automatic rifle because you can burn up the cover. They're not indestructible. You can actually cause a shorter service life on the suppressor because you're keeping that heat in instead of letting it dissipate. So I would not run one on a high volume of fire semi-automatic rifle. If it's a semi-automatic precision rifle, you're still going to be fine. But overall, the suppressor cover worked very well. We didn't have any problems with it moving or shifting or coming off. So I want to thank Armageddon Gear for that, because without this cover, it would have been much more difficult for us to shoot the match, and I probably would not have shot the suppressor if I didn't have the suppressor cover for it. Coming back here, we've got the Atlas bipod from B&T Industries on a spigot mount. The AT is one of the last of the Accuracy International rifles to utilize a spigot mount. Thankfully, we just pulled the whole assembly off of our AE Mark II and slapped it on here, and it worked great. This is the version 8 bipod. Actually, it's the 8.1. We also have an Atlas PSR, and we'll be doing a compare and contrast video here really soon, showing you the benefits of the PSR over the version 8.1, and there are quite a few. The reason that we still ran the 8.1 is because it was already attached to the spigot mount, and we have the PSR on one of the other rifles right now. So again, look forward to that in the future. The Atlas worked very well in the desert environment. The feet were able to sink in and get a pretty good bite. I didn't have a whole lot of problem with it walking. It was long enough that I was able to raise it up and get elevation for the shots high up on the hill. So overall, it worked really well. It's a fairly lightweight package, and what I really like about this setup on the spigot is I can just loosen this nut up here, hit the release lever, and I can jettison the bipod if I don't need it for a stage. So it's really easy to pop it off, throw it in my pack, and get it out of the way. So that is the Atlas version 8.1 bipod. Now coming back here, you'll notice this is not the Collis 624i. The K624i we were not able to get on the rifle quick enough to do any kind of tracking or verification with it before we went out. So I didn't think it was going to be wise to put that on the rifle and shoot the match with it. Instead, we went with the tried and true Razor Gen 1. This is a 5 to 20 power rifle scope, mil turrets, mil reticle. It does have the old school 5 mil per rev turrets, and believe it or not, I really like these turrets because it's fairly large spacing between the clicks, so you really are able to dial it precisely and not worry about overshooting and having to come back and fiddle around with it. So I like the larger space clicks on the 5 mil per rev, and I don't really see it as a drawback when you're trying to quickly dial your elevation. Same thing on the windage, really fat windage markings on it. I really only dial windage for one stage, and again, we'll talk about that on the after action report. One thing that you will notice that's a little bit different is this guy here And this is what's called a breakaway coaster. And I will do a full write-up on these later, but these cost about 20 bucks for 2 of them on Amazon. You can just search for breakaway coasters. And they're actually made for fishing tackle. But in instances like the Razor here, where we have a flat magnification ring, then we can put one of these coasters on here and trim it, and it works just like a cattail and allows you to really quickly get through the magnification range. And that was a great help on a couple of different stages where we're dealing with small targets that don't really contrast against the background, and you have to move. So you move, jump into position, flip this down to a lower magnification, see what you need to see, get the scope centered up on the target, and then come back up to high magnification to engage the target. Having the cattail on here just really makes it a quick thing to flip back and forth, and when the clock is ticking, those seconds really count. So these are great. I wish they worked on all scopes because, again, they're so cheap, 20 bucks for 2 of them. So that's a $10 item versus most of the time the billet aluminum ones are upwards of $100 for just a little cattail to go on your magnification ring. Unfortunately, if you have a taper to your magnification ring, they don't work because as you tighten them down, they just slide forward off of the ring. So it has to be a flat ring for these to work, and the rubber magnification ring on the Razor Gen 1, it works perfectly. It's almost like it's made to do that. So check that out. Now we have the scope mounted in a Bobro Precision mount, and it worked extremely well. We didn't have any cause to need to remove the scope during any of the stages of fire or during any of the maintenance of the rifle while I was out there. But knowing that I could pop the scope off and then pop it back on and have it retain perfect zero is a really, really nice peace of mind if for some reason you run into something where you do have to remove that scope. So overall, that worked perfectly. Now the last thing I want to talk about on the rifle is the magazines. Now with the AT, Accuracy International made a little bit of a change. It no longer utilizes AICS magazines. It utilizes the AW/AX magazines. These are a staggered magazine, so it's a double stack magazine. It is a 10-round magazine, and it fits really close to the bottom of the rifle. So it's a really nice low profile design. It's only slightly longer than the old AICS 5-round magazines. Now the AX magazines have a great advantage in that when you're loading them, all you do is set the cartridges on the top and push down like you would with an AR-15 or an AR-10 or any of the other semi-automatic double stack magazines out there. So really a whole lot quicker to load, and when your fingers are numb or cold or you're fatigued, I find it a whole lot easier just to put the cartridges on and push them straight down to load instead of having to push down, feed from the front, and make sure they're all the way pushed to the back. The other big advantage to these magazines is that in the desert environment, we don't want to have our ammunition rolling around on the ground. So with the magazine inside the rifle loaded, when I fire that last shot, come back, chamber my next round, and then I time out and I'm told to unload the rifle, I can simply bring the bolt back with my hand covering the port and cause the round to drop in here, push the round straight down, locking it back into the magazine, and then removing the magazine, and that last cartridge that I chambered is locked back in the mag. Really nice, really simple. I initially didn't think the ability to top load the magazine while it was in the rifle was going to be any benefit whatsoever, but in this one instance it actually ends up being a really nice benefit. Instead of having to fumble with the cartridge outside the rifle, I just snap that cartridge back down in there, drop the mag out. The cartridge is safely secured in the magazine, ready for me to stow it away. Before, with the AICS mags, I would have to eject the cartridge, making sure that I catch it in my hand as it comes out of the ejection port, then drop the magazine, then fiddle with pushing it back into the mag. Not really a great big huge deal, but it's just one of those little nice features as Accuracy International goes forward that they add to their rifles that make it just more enjoyable to operate the rifle. The drawback though, no more AICS magazines. So if you have a bunch of AICS magazines like I do, they do not work in the AT, at least not that we were able to get any to fit in there. So that's it on the overall rifle and the magazine system. Now let's talk about some of the rifle support equipment that I utilized. First, we will talk about the nifty little magazine pouch that I have here. This is from Triad Tactical, and this is one of their brand new magazine pouches, and this thing is convertible for a very, very wide array of magazines. And you can go on Triad's website, and we'll leave a link down below, and you can see what all you can fit in here. But the flap is removable. If you want to remove the flap, it comes with an elastic cord as well, so you can just have the magazine retained by a cord instead of a flap. I use this as a secondary magazine pouch, so really it's my last ditch magazine, and I want to make sure that it's held in there really securely and protected, so I run this one with a flap on it. Got malice clips on the back of it, so it makes it really easy just to thread my belt through and mount on there. But you can mount it on the outside of your pack or molly gear, your battle belt, or whatever. The flap, in addition to being removable, is adjustable for height. So if you're running a larger magazine, then you can adjust it and get it really stretched over there, so you can even put large AR-10 type magazines in here and be good to go. It has a neat little height adjuster in here, elevator strap. So where I initially had this magazine set up for 10-round AICS magazines, now the shorter 10-round AX magazines will still fit in there. And I just move that elevator up to hold the magazine a little higher, and then the flap comes down and secures it really well. You could even raise it up high enough to get a 5-round AICS magazine in here if you wish. Really, really nice piece of gear, really made bomb-proof, and they come in a variety of colors, so if you really want to match up the rest of your gear, you can do so. But it was a really good help. I have had instances in the past where I really messed up and went up to a stage without enough ammo to complete the stage. So this time I've decided to start always carrying a magazine of 10 rounds on my belt. So even if I goof up, or if I have a mechanical problem or a magazine failure or something, I can strip that magazine out, go to my backup magazine, and continue on and at least get some points on the stage instead of blowing the whole stage. So really nice thing to have, even if you don't believe that any of the stages you're going to shoot are going to require you to load from a magazine. Now, one of the critical pieces of equipment that I brought with me is my Kestrel, and this is the Applied Ballistics Kestrel, and all of this stuff is still really covered with dust from the range out there. The Applied Ballistics Kestrel really has worked very, very well for us. We banged this thing around, dropped it, kicked it, done all kinds of stuff, and it just keeps on going. And the really, really beautiful thing about it is if you are accurate in the data that you are putting into this, you can set up a gun, get velocity on it, get all the specs dialed in here, take this just about anywhere in the world, and then the information it's going to give you is going to allow you to get on with your first shot. We took it, again, had very little time to do development or dope gathering with this rifle here in Indiana. Drove out to Oregon. I had good velocity numbers. I had my good height over bore and all that dialed in here. And we were able to get very accurate data out in Oregon, almost 2,000 miles away, without having ever shot this rig there before. We were dead on and we were good to go. And we used the data off the Kestrel for the entire match. There were times when I transferred the data from the Kestrel onto my wrist board. But the Kestrel was the source of all of the data that I used for the match. And we will be doing a little bit more in depth on how to program the Kestrel and how to get the most out of it in a later video. The last thing I'm going to talk about here is the eye protection that I took out there. Oakley ran us down when we were at the SHOT Show and told us about a new set that they were releasing called the Tombstone. This is Oakley's first set of glasses that are specifically designed for shooting sports. Now, a lot of us have worn Oakleys for shooting for a very long time. I wear Oakleys when I'm out on regular patrol. They're just really durable glasses. Yeah, they're kind of Gucci, they're kind of expensive, but I have generally been satisfied with any set of Oakleys that I've bought with the fit, the finish, and the performance, and they're mostly my preferred off-duty glasses right now. But Oakley wanted us to try these new Tombstones, and the catch here is that they use their prism lenses, and I really generally like clear shooting glasses. I think it really, when we're working with really expensive optics on top of rifle, to throw another cheaper piece of plastic in between your eyeball in this really expensive glass is usually not the greatest thing in the world. But when you're in really bright environments, say snow or desert, then the light that these scopes can pass can really be painful to your eyes. You need something to knock that glare down. You need something to knock that volume down a little bit. And the prism lenses, I really found work really, really well. They cut a lot more of the blue than they cut the other portions of the light spectrum. And I really didn't have any distortion. And the Tombstones have a very minimal amount of stuff right here in the middle. You just have the little nose piece. You don't have any big bulky frames or bulky stuff around them. So when you're using a precision rifle scope, you can really get that sight picture in there really good, and you don't have portions of the frame intruding on the sight picture. This is a problem I've had with some other glasses and really makes me not want to wear glasses when I'm shooting with a scope. Not so with the prisms. I can wear them just fine. And the Tombstones make switching out the prism lenses or the clear lenses really, really simple. They've just got one release button here. You push the release button and the ear stems come off, and then you snap the whole ear stem on to another lens, just like that. The nose pieces stay on the lenses, so you're really just transferring the ear stems to the other lenses, and allows you to keep quite a few lenses in the kit. This kit comes with several different lenses, including a clear lens for night shooting, and it's quick to switch them around without actually getting your nasty fingerprints all over the lenses. The old school M frames where you had to pull them out of the frames, I'd always end up getting suntan lotion or bug spray or whatever all over the lenses when I'm trying to switch them out, and it just really didn't work, because then you got smudges on them, then you got to grab your nasty dirty t-shirt and try to wipe them off. This is a really, really nice design. The one drawback I find to it, though, is they are a little bit flimsy as far as the fit on your head. They're designed to be worn with ear protection, with over-the-ear protection. They've got these really nice thin ear stems. So when I'm wearing ear protection over them, they fit tight, they're snug, I don't have to worry about them moving. If I take my ear pro off, I have to be careful because they can slip off of my head. I don't exactly have a small head, so if you've got a small head, that's something to keep in mind. Now, these were engineering samples. These are pre-production, so they may improve the fit a little bit better on the production models, and we may try to get Oakley to send us out a production model when they are hitting the shelves. That way we can try out the finished product instead of just the pre-production engineering samples. But for shooting, I've been really satisfied with these, and I really, really like the new prism lenses. So that's the Oakley Tombstones with the prism lens on them. And that is really about it for the basic gear that I used. The ear pro I used were the MSA Sordens, and we've talked a lot about those in the past. So those worked extremely well as well. Everything pretty much just worked out for me on this one. As I said, I was unhappy with my performance on a couple of stages. There were a couple of stages I could have done a little bit better on. But overall, a 4th place finish with the caliber of shooters that we had out there. I'm satisfied with that performance. Now I just have to go out and I have to fill the holes in my training and fix it so I'm ready to go next time. That is it for the gear and equipment that I carried at the Oregon Sniper Challenge. If you guys have any questions about any other piece of gear that I may or may not have used out there, please post them in the comment section below and we'll try to get to them. If you like the video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, get out and shoot!